Disowned by my family at a young age, I never imagined I would cross paths with them again. But fate has a way of bringing people back together. At an extravagant wedding, I unexpectedly encountered them once more. The moment their eyes landed on me, their disdain was unmistakable. My mother sneered, "What is that worthless girl doing here?" My sister smirked, "You weren't even invited." Just as her husband moved to throw me out, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. His expression shifted, his voice unsteady. "Wait. This woman is..." I simply smiled and said, "You really have no idea, do you? My name is Maya Ford and I'm 30 years old. I live with my husband, Adam, who is 5 years older than me, along with our 5-year-old son. Today Adam and I are attending a wedding. While I barely know the bride and groom, Adam has a much closer connection to them. I only recognize them by appearance. The wedding is being held at a luxurious hotel, and though I know it's improper, I can't help but wonder just how much this entire event must have cost. Adam mentioned he needed to mingle with some people, so I excused myself to use the restroom. As I was leaving the ladies' room, heading back toward the ceremony, I overheard some unpleasant voices. Well, look who it is. The defective one. What's she doing in a place like this? What do you mean, Mom? Oh, you're right. Why is she even here? We didn't invite her. I felt the sting of their words. They weren't even trying to whisper anymore. They threw insults so effortlessly. Still, they hadn't addressed me directly, and I had no interest in engaging with such openly rude people. I decided to walk away. "Hey, don't walk away from me, you ugly thing. I know you can hear me." I wasn't sure if that remark was aimed at me, but I chose to ignore it. Ugly thing wasn't my name. As I quickened my pace down the hallway, I heard footsteps following close behind, making my heart race. This is ridiculous. They should have given up by now. Why continue embarrassing themselves? Just as that thought crossed my mind, someone suddenly grabbed my arm. They had practically sprinted to catch up, their nails digging sharply into my skin. "I told you to wait," the woman snapped, breathless. I looked her up and down before shaking her hand off. She stumbled back dramatically, letting out an exaggerated cry. Honestly, what a pointless display. "Oh, are you okay?" "How violent of her." Another woman gasped as she rushed to help the first one. Then she turned to me with a furious glare. "Excuse me, but who do you think you are?" "Who am I? Are you seriously asking me that?" I replied, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "You seem like an awfully self-absorbed person. Have we met before?" Her perfectly shaped eyebrows shot up. "What's your problem? How dare you talk to me like that? If you've really forgotten, let me remind you." I folded my arms. "I'm your sister Elle. Does that ring a bell? Surely even your disappointing brain can recall that." Then she gestured to the woman beside her. "And this is our mother. Don't tell me you've forgotten your own mother too." I tilted my head slightly. Well, I suppose someone by that name might have meant something to me, once upon a time. These people weren't worth my energy. My response only fueled their anger. Just then 2 men came rushing over. "Hey, what's all the commotion? We could hear the shouting from over there." "Oh, are you done getting ready? Wait, you're still in your regular clothes. You need to change now." "Dad. Ron. This person, she's an intruder. He crashed our wedding. Throw her out immediately." Elle, as she called herself, pointed a trembling finger at me. Didn't anyone ever teach her that pointing was rude? The 2 men reacted in opposite ways. The one called Dad narrowed his eyes, scowling in clear displeasure. The other, Ron, froze in place, his expression utterly shocked as the color drained from his face. "Why is she here?" Dad scoffed. "I never thought I'd have to see her face on such a happy day." "Right. She must have snuck in by mistake. This is awful. Someone call security right away." "Hey, watch your mouth." Ron suddenly shouted, his face pale. "Do you even know who this is?" "This is Dr. Ford." I sighed, muttering under my breath, "So, You really don't know anything, do you? No one seemed to notice my words. Why, there you are. I've been looking for you. A new voice cut through the tension. It was my husband, Adam. Every pair of eyes in the room turned toward him at once. Adam looked slightly surprised. Sorry, I meant to come right back, but I got caught up with some unusual people. I say with a wry smile as I step closer to him. Adam blinks, glancing around at the people surrounding us. Then he mutters, "Ah," as if quickly piecing together the situation. That's my Adam, always quick on the uptake. Elle, who had been gazing at Adam with admiration the moment he appeared, swiftly shifts back to glaring at me the second I stand beside him. The two referred to as father and mother still wear confused expressions, as if they haven't fully processed what's happening. Ron, on the other hand, is clearly flustered. He's the first to break the silence. Dr. Ford, I deeply apologize. It seems my wife has been extremely rude. My sincerest apologies to you as well." Then he turns to Elle, nudging her. "Hey Elle, you should apologize too." "What? Why should I apologize?" Elle scoffs, crossing her arms. "She's the one who should be apologizing. This shameless woman who had the audacity to sneak into our wedding. I don't even know how she found out about it. But this woman, this disgrace, we disowned her years ago. We were never supposed to see her face again." "Family," Adam interjects, raising an eyebrow. His gaze flickers between Al and me. The two referred to as father and mother immediately step in to explain. "Oh Ron, you see," my mother says with an exaggerated sigh. "We had a good-for-nothing eldest daughter. Such an embarrassment, in fact, that we couldn't even bring ourselves to mention her. We threw her out of the house 9 years ago," my father adds, shaking his head. "Really, I wonder how she even found out about Elle's wedding. Showing up like this, what could she possibly be planning? She's not trying to ruin it, is she?" "That's right." My mother chimes in, her voice full of scorn. "She was a foolish girl who couldn't even get into college. A useless failure who wasted her time with part-time jobs after high school. She just lazed around doing absolutely nothing. A parasite. We should be thanked for raising such a burden for as long as we did." The insults keep coming, but they don't faze me. I gave up on this so-called family long ago. Their words don't hold any weight anymore. Yes, technically these people are my family, at least that's what the official records say. But the truth is, my parents only ever cared about my younger sister Elle, who was 6 years younger than me. From the moment I could remember, I was treated as an afterthought. My father came from a long line of doctors and ran a medical clinic while my mother worked there as a nurse. From the outside, our family probably seemed well off, successful, even ideal. But in reality, our home was steeped in toxicity. When I was little, I tried my best to earn my parents' love. But one day, I overheard their reasoning for favoring my sister over me. "Ella's cute. You're not." That was it. That was the logic behind why my sister was always the priority. That was the day I stopped expecting anything from them. Fortunately, I had one thing going for me: I was intelligent. I enjoyed studying and I saw it as my way out. If I could just work hard enough, I could escape this household for good. By then, I had already been cast as the failed older sister in their eyes, but I didn't care. Then came my 3rd year of high school. "Listen here, we won't allow you to go to college. You're just a worthless, defective girl. There's no way you'd get in anyway. You'll start working as soon as you graduate and hand over your earnings to us. You need to repay us properly for raising you." That's right. You've always lacked gratitude. College? Maybe for Al, but not for you. We won't waste another penny on a failure like you. You'll spend your life serving this household. Though honestly, I doubt you could even hold a decent job. I remember sitting there silent. But in my pocket, my phone was recording every word. By high school, I had started documenting every cruel thing they said, every unreasonable demand they made. Just in case. Elle, on the other hand, had always looked down on me. Fueled by our parents' attitude, she constantly asserted her superiority. I'm going to be a doctor and take over Dad's clinic, she would declare smugly. I'll work hard for my sister's share too. Oh, how wonderful, my mother would gush. Yes, yes, be nothing like her. Use her as an example of what not to be. Don't worry, Al, you can do it. We'll support you all the way. Unlike your sister, you're truly our pride and joy. They would say things like this right in front of me, deliberately, gleefully. After high school, I worked various part-time jobs and freelance gigs for 3 years. I still lived at home during that time, but only because my parents wouldn't let me leave. They didn't want me around, yet they didn't want to lose their free labor either. But the truth was, I had already secretly rented an apartment. They always made threats like, "We won't forgive you if you do this," or, "We won't forgive you if you don't do that." But I came to realize something. Once I turned 18, I didn't need my family's forgiveness for anything. It wasn't easy. I had to navigate things like securing a guarantor for my apartment, and I had to be careful with my finances, underreporting my income so they wouldn't take everything. At the same time, I started investing. Slowly but surely, I built up my savings. Then one day my parents found the perfect excuse to get rid of me for good. Elle is preparing for her high school entrance exams. She can't concentrate with you around. And just like that, they kicked me out. They must have expected me to come crawling back eventually. After all, they thought I was helpless. But I never did. And I'm sure they quickly forgot about me because in the end all they ever needed was Elle. Now 9 years later, I find myself standing here back in their presence. While I'm lost in these memories, the argument between Elle and Ron escalates. I'm telling you, why are you defending her? Elle snaps. She's an intruder. Her presence here is ruining everything. Throw her out. And I'm telling you, Ron says, voice rising, I invited them to this wedding. He even checked the guest list with me. They were properly invited. His words only enrage Elle further. Then out of the blue, my father suddenly freezes. His eyes widen as he stares at Adam. Could it be? He stammers. You're the son of Ford General Hospital, aren't you? At that, my mother gasps. Wait, Ford General Hospital? You mean that massive hospital? You mean, he's the director's son? My mother's eyes widened in shock. A hospital director's son had all their attention. My parents, my sister, and her fiancé immediately focused on us. Adam gave a slight bow. How do you do? I'm Adam Ford and this is my wife, Maya. I offered a gentle bow as well, maintaining a sweet, polite smile. Adam's parents are both highly accomplished doctors who run a prestigious hospital with a long-standing reputation. As their heir, Adam is a promising doctor who continuously refines his skills. My parents stared at me, their mouths opening and closing like fish, utterly speechless as they watched me carry myself with grace and confidence. My sister's fiancé quickly stepped in, attempting to take control of the situation. Oh, what a coincidence that Dr. Ford's wife happens to be my wife's sister. That makes us family. Dr. Allen, thank you for attending to our son the other day. I cut him off mid-sentence. This man, Alan Ron, my sister's fiancé, is also a doctor. He works at a university hospital and recently examined our son, who had been feeling unwell. That was the extent of our relationship. Though it seemed that Adam had interacted with him professionally before. Apparently, Alan held a deep admiration for Adam. How is your son doing? He asked, his tone shifting into a professional one. Based on my examination, he requires immediate treatment. Please bring him to our hospital for further tests and... well, we decided to seek another opinion afterward. I interrupted with a calm smile. You understand how valuable second opinions are, don't you? Alan visibly froze. It was clear he saw my son as an important patient, a potential source of great financial gain. That's why he was so eager for us to choose his hospital. However, I had no intention of allowing my son to be treated as a mere business opportunity. I rejected him with a composed smile. Then a scoffing voice cut through the air. What is this? Are you trying to get back at us? Do you think you're special just because you married a doctor? Oh, my sister sneered, crossing her arms. How stupid can you be? Just because your husband is the heir to a major hospital doesn't mean you are important. Your education level hasn't changed. You're still nothing. And to make things worse, you even have a child. How pitiful. What a shame for a child to have such a worthless mother. Al, that's enough. Alan snapped, clearly uncomfortable. Why? She shot back. They're blood relatives, aren't they? Why shouldn't I say what's true? Adam turned to me and asked calmly, Maya, are these people really your family? I met his gaze and answered firmly, no. They are not my family at all. After all, real family wouldn't scream at you over trivial things. They wouldn't withhold food for an entire day just because you spilled something on the table. They wouldn't give me worn-out hand-me-downs while showering my sister with expensive brand-name dresses, laughing at the stark difference. Family wouldn't throw away my study materials telling me, you're too stupid to need these. They wouldn't soak my textbooks in water to ruin them. Real family wouldn't force a child outside barefoot in the freezing winter just for refusing to lend a book to her sister. They wouldn't lock me in a storage shed during the scorching summer and call it discipline. They wouldn't sell my belongings without permission or openly declare that they'd work me to the bone for the rest of my life like a servant. Even the neighbors had noticed the blatant favoritism my parents displayed. They saw how differently my sister and I were treated, suspecting abuse. In time, they stopped bringing their children to my parents' clinic, unwilling to support people who could treat their own child so cruelly. Yet my parents never questioned why their business was now suffering. During our matter-of-fact discussion, exposing the mistreatment I had endured, Alan looked on in shock. My parents too appeared stunned, not because of remorse but because I, the daughter they had cast aside, was well aware of their clinic's decline. For the record, this information came from my in-laws. They had looked into my parents' business, sympathizing deeply with the hardships I had endured. In fact, they were more outraged by my past than I was. Perhaps at some point they had considered using this knowledge as a form of retribution. Stop making up lies. We never did any of that, my sister shrieked, her voice laced with desperation. This is all your fault for being a failure. Ron, don't believe a single word she's saying. But it was too late. Alan was staring at her, his expression filled with disgust. If only she had ignored me when I tried to leave. If only she hadn't forced this confrontation. Then none of this would have unfolded. No, Alan said, his voice firm. The one who has been lying all this time is you. What do you mean? My sister demanded. You told me Dr. Ford's wife was just a high school graduate, he said coldly. But she's a college graduate. Not only that, she started her own company and serves as its president. A company specializing in medical food that even our hospital depends on. A stunned silence filled the room. My sister gawked at me as if she were seeing a stranger. My parents wore the same expression of disbelief. That's ridiculous. She only finished high school. What college? Are you seriously saying she went to college without telling us? My mother blurted out. I met her gaze steadily. Yes, I did. I was an adult and I had no reason to report anything to people who stopped being my family long ago. How dare you speak to your parents like that? My mother snapped, her voice shaking with fury. We told you we wouldn't allow you to go to college. I let out a sigh, exasperated. And why exactly did I need your permission? My parents clenched their teeth, barely containing their anger. After graduating high school, I worked part-time jobs and managed to save a significant amount of money. I used part of it to cover my college expenses. There were still things I wanted to learn, goals I wanted to achieve. Once I left home, I was finally free. Free to make my own choices, free to shape my own future. It was during my college years that I met my husband, Adam. At the same time, I was laying the foundation for my own company. Thinking back on it now, those years feel nostalgic. Meanwhile, my sister stood there, pale-faced, muttering to herself. This has to be a lie, she whispered. She was nothing. a useless failure of an older sister who couldn't do anything on her own. I thought she'd be rotting in some gutter after being thrown out of the house. But instead, she went to college. She started a company. She became a president. And she even married the heir to a major hospital? Why? Her voice rose into a desperate wail. I was supposed to be the one who was happy. I was the one who was meant to have the perfect life. So why is she more successful than me? Why does she look so happy? I tilted my head slightly, meeting her gaze. I wonder why. I mused. Maybe because I worked hard without letting bitterness consume me, even when I was treated unfairly by my so-called family. I suppose I was a little lucky too. I held her gaze for a moment before casually dropping a bombshell. Oh, by the way, I heard you actually dropped out of middle school. Is that true? The entire room fell into stunned silence. My so-called family and Alan all went rigid. What? What nonsense are you suddenly spouting? My sister shrieked. Who dropped out of middle school? Her ability to feign ignorance was impressive even now. Actually, I continued unfazed, I heard the whole story from our dear aunt, the only relative who was ever kind to me. After I left home, she kept me informed. She told me how you got so confident, assuming you could easily get into a prestigious school without studying at all. Then on exam day you turned in blank papers. Of course you failed. I took a slow breath before continuing. And after that, you threw tantrums, locked yourself away in your room and refused to leave the house. You were a complete shut-in for years, only stepping outside again when our parents set you up with Alan. As I spoke, Alan's expression darkened. On the other hand, my parents and sister grew paler with each passing second. The aunt who told me all of this was a distant relative on my father's side. She had a talent for collecting gossip. Somehow she always knew everything. And though I had only met her a few times as a child, she had always looked out for me. She even became my guarantor when I left home. Stop spreading lies, my sister shrieked, her voice trembling. I ignored her. Oh, and another thing. You claim to be working as a medical office clerk at the family clinic, but that's a lie too, isn't it? You don't actually have any qualifications, I pointed out. You're just doing miscellaneous odd jobs. They can't assign real work to someone without credentials. At the very least, I suppose our parents had some ethical sense left. Stop it. Those are lies. Everything you're saying is a lie. Is that so? I said with a small shrug. I'm just repeating what I've heard. Whether you believe it or not is your problem. At that, my sister spun around to face Alan. His expression was now a mix of suspicion, confusion, and disgust. Al, you told me, and our parents, that you graduated from a prestigious women's university, earned your qualifications and were helping at the clinic. His voice turned cold. Was that all a lie? Did you commit academic fraud? You deceived me. That's not true. Alan, don't believe a word this woman says. My sister pleaded desperately. You're my fiancé. You have to believe me. Alan's expression darkened further. Then tell me the name of just one professor from the university you claim to have attended. My sister froze. That's not important right now, she stammered. Oh. Then let's call one of the professors from your supposed department, Alan said smoothly, reaching for his phone. They're acquaintances of my parents. We socialize with them often. I'm sure they'll remember whether or not there was ever a student named Al in their department. My sister's face twisted with panic. Stop. There's no need for that. In a frenzy, she lunged at Alan, snatching his phone from his hand and slamming it to the floor. The device shattered upon impact. Don't verify anything. Just believe me, she screamed. Then, in a fit of rage, she ground her heel against the broken phone, her expression deranged. Alan recoiled in disgust, while my stunned parents rushed forward, trying to restrain my sister before she caused an even bigger scene. By now, the wedding guests and venue staff had gathered around, drawn by the commotion. It had become a full-blown spectacle. Oddly enough, it all felt like a distant problem, something that no longer concerned me. Because in truth it didn't. My family was no longer them. My family consisted of my husband and my son. That was all. Adam gently took my hand. "Shall we head home?" he asked. "We've given the wedding gift. We've fulfilled our social obligations." I nodded. "Are you sure you're done, Maya?" he added, watching me closely, as if confirming whether I had said everything I needed to, whether I had finally gotten my closure. I turned to him, smiled brightly and replied, "Yes. I'm finished. I don't care anymore, let's go home," I said. "Oh, how about we stop by the cake shop in this hotel on our way out? I've been dying to try their super luxury cake." "Sure, let's do that. Let's buy some cake to take home." We laughed together and left the wedding venue. Sometime later, I heard that Alan had been sued for exaggerating diagnoses and charging excessive medical fees. Then my parents came looking for my help, though of course they had no way of contacting me. I heard they showed up at my husband's hospital, causing a scene and demanding to see me. "Listen here. You're the wife of this hospital's heir. She's our daughter, let us see her right now. You can contact the heir of this hospital, can't you? We're in trouble here. She's family, she has to help us. We're just asking her to repay us for raising her." That's right. I never thought she'd be of any use, but I guess raising her paid off. Who would have thought she'd marry someone even better than Elle? Of course, the son-in-law should help us. Apparently they were making quite a scene at the reception. But instead of my husband or me, it was my in-laws who went out to meet them. With just a single glare, my in-laws silenced my parents before firmly stating, "What do you want with our daughter?" My parents froze like frogs before a snake and quickly scrambled away. They tried to reach out again afterward, but their past neglect had already caught up with them. Their clinic soon shut down. When I heard about it, I felt nothing. Later I found out that my sister and her husband had divorced. Honestly, I was surprised their marriage even lasted a few months. Perhaps Alan getting sued and fired from the hospital was the final straw. Desperate to prove she could be happier than me, my sister started making reckless choices. First, she got involved with a married doctor more than 20 years older than her, hoping to secure a wealthier husband than mine. However, the affair was quickly exposed, leading to a scandal when the doctor's wife demanded compensation. My sister turned to our parents for help, but instead of supporting her, they disowned her, calling her a disgrace to the family. After that, I lost track of her. There were whispers. Some said she started working in nightclubs, others claimed her health had declined, and some even said she became homeless. But honestly, I didn't care anymore. As for my parents, I heard they were desperately searching for work as doctors and nurses. But no hospital was willing to hire a couple nearing retirement. Of course, these were just rumors, perhaps fueled by how they had treated me, which had spread throughout the medical community. But I had no time to waste on people who weren't even family anymore. After seeking a second opinion at another hospital, my son's health issues were resolved with simple medication. No hospitalization was needed. I protect my family. I always have and I always will. And just like that, the past was left behind. Now let's take a moment to reflect. Maya's story isn't just about revenge. It's about resilience, growth, and breaking free from toxic relationships. For years, her family tried to convince her that she was worthless, but in the end, they were the ones left behind. She never sought revenge, she simply thrived, and that was the greatest victory. True success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. This story also serves as a powerful lesson in karma. Those who belittled her, mocked her, and discarded her ultimately faced their own downfall, brought on by their arrogance. Her parents lost everything. Her sister's lies unraveled. The very people who cast her aside were left with nothing but regret. And the most remarkable part? Maya didn't have to do anything. She just kept moving forward, while the past crumbled on its own. What do you think? If you were in Maya's shoes, would you choose to forgive? Or would you make them pay even more? Share your thoughts in the comments.